Hello and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special On the Ground. I'm Shereen Bhan. Well, last October, the government finally decided to hand over Air India by way of the disinvestment process to the Tatas. It was a homecoming of sorts, considering that the iconic JRD Tata had founded Air India. Finally, the airline was given over to the Tatas in January and the transition is underway. Joining me now to talk about the flight path for Air India going forward is the CEO, who has in fact now spent about 4 months or 3.5 months in office. Mr. Campbell, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Appreciate your time. You gave a very short soundbite a couple of weeks ago where you said it's very exciting, and that's all you're going to say. So I'm hoping that you're going to say a little bit more than that today.
I'm ready now.
Let me start by asking you about what is the most exciting aspect of Air India. It is challenging as well, but what's been the most exciting aspect of it since you've taken over?
Oh, goodness. Air India is iconic. Tomorrow is the 90th anniversary of JRD Tata's first flight in India. And since then, Air India has been the best in the world. It has stood for all that is good about India. But at the moment, it has some work to do to get back up to those heights. The most exciting thing about coming back really is seeing the potential in Air India because of the people's warmth and desire to get better, the resource and ambition of the Tata Group, the place that India is in, both geographically, economically, to support an airline that we want to create in the form of the new Air India. All of the ingredients are there for Air India's spectacular success if we put the work and the time and the effort and the resource into doing so. So the exciting thing really is the potential.
You know, to be able to achieve the potential that you just spoke of, there are several ingredients that need to be put into place, as you point out. So let me pick up on each one of those. And let's start with resources. What kind of capital infusion is required at this point in time for you to be able to achieve the kind of targets that you've set out for Air India?
Well, we're not talking specifically numbers at the moment. We're talking about ambitions. We've publicly stated that we want to increase the fleet by about 3 times. We want to invest in products and systems and services that the customer experiences, but also that the employees need in order to provide the service we want to provide. It's going to require significant investment in aircraft, but not just aircraft. Really, so it's more about ambition rather than dollars at the moment, provided that we execute well and we are delivering the value and meeting the aspirations of our shareholder. I'm quite confident the capital will come.
But what would the ballpark number be, given the fleet expansion aspirations that you have, as well as everything else that you want to fix on the back end? And where is the capital going to come in from? Are you looking for capital outside of the promoters?
Well, again, I'm not going to put a number to the capital. I think you can do some back-of-the-envelope calculations. If you triple the fleet and multiply that by aircraft prices, you get a sense.
It would depend on who you're talking to and how hard of a bargain you're going to negotiate.
And trust me, we're negotiating a very hard bargain. But it's big numbers. But it's big numbers in the context of rebuilding an airline, a world-class airline, an airline with a global reach that represents and takes India to the world. So the numbers are big, but the ambition is big, and I think we've got the backing and the support to do it. With respect to how long it takes, look, it's going to take a while. This is going to be it's not a T20, this is a test match. And in a test match, you have different milestones. In the way to 100, you need to be patient, you need to be ambitious, you need to be sometimes a little bit lucky. Sometimes you'll score 6s, but mostly it's about graft, application, patience, and scoring those 1s and 2s consistently over time to reach the objective.
So, since you're talking about scoring the 1s and 2s, let me pick up on that. There was a fleet expansion plan which started by the end of this year and it continues, through the early part of next year as well. Is that on track? How many aircraft do you intend to have on board between December to the first quarter of next year?
So we started with a number of aircraft that were grounded, and over the course of the last 5 or 6 months, we've spent a lot of time working with Boeing and other OEMs to get these aircraft back into service. We've put 16 aircraft back into service, we've got another 12 to go. So that has enabled some expansion. The next immediate phase of expansion comes with leasing in of aircraft. We have 5 wide-body aircraft that we've already announced we're deploying to particularly North American markets, and then 25 narrow bodies that will come in the early part of next year in order to support the short-haul or domestic fleet. We're in conversations with other lessors to bring in more narrow bodies and wide bodies throughout the course of 2023. And of course, then we've got our OEM discussions with Boeing and Airbus and the engine manufacturers, which will then take the fleet expansion forward with aircraft that we will own and then carry forward from 2024 onwards. So we will increase the actual operating fleet from about 30, maybe nearly to 60 by the end part of 2023, and from 50 odd to probably 75 in the narrow body space.
That's as far as the fleet expansion is concerned. Let's talk about people as well, because there was a one-year retention period as part of the disinvestment plan that the government had put in place. That will come to a close in January. So what's the plan as far as people are concerned? What's been the VRS offtake? And what's the hiring plan as well?
Well, so for the VRS, we had a VRS launched in June. About 3,500 people were eligible, about 43% took it up, and they're in the process of their release. Many are working for their own reasons for a little bit longer than the original VRS period. We've been recruiting significantly because we are in a growth phase. For the first time in 8 years, Air India is growing its fleet and therefore growing its manpower requirement. We're bringing in about 250 cabin crew a month, new cabin crew. We're bringing about 100 pilots in every quarter. And we just released an ad for MBA qualified people to join the management cadre at all levels of the management cadre across the business, and had many, many thousands of applicants. So we're very encouraged by the interest of people to join Air India. As we move forward, clearly there's going to be new opportunities that come with growth. And we're in the process of deciding what skills and capabilities the organisation needs, what skills and capabilities we already have, how we can fit those two together, what training or assistance we can provide people, because there are people that want to stay with Air India and contribute to the success and the ambition that we have. We would very much welcome everyone to contribute to this task, because it's not an easy one.
No, it isn't. And speaking of challenging tasks ahead of you, you've got, of course, the aspiration of being able to take your market share to 30%, but that's as part of your 5-year transformation plan. In the near term, you're about 8.4% as of today. Slipping a little bit back and forth over the last few months. But what is it that in the interim that you believe you're going to be able to improve on, given the fact that you are adding capacity as well?
In the context of market share,
yes.
Or generally? So bringing leased aircraft in is one. As I say, we've got some already signed. We're in conversation for more. So yes, it's a 5-year project to get to 30% market share. There's various ways to do it, but we're quite confident. Well, we're very confident of doing so. And yes, it's going to be step by step. As I say, all those ones and twos will add up.
But in the near term, like 2023, what do you believe you're going to be able to do in terms of improvement, both in terms of market share as well as some of the other metrics that I know you're keen to focus on-time performance and so on and so forth?
Well, the intake of aircraft and the restoration of grounded aircraft will necessarily lead to an increase in capacity. Whether that leads into an increase in market share obviously depends on what other players in the market do. But the things that are under our control, we're putting in place. With respect to on-time performance, Air India didn't have a good reputation, let's be fair. There were many, many reasons for that. Systems, processes, focus, aircraft availability, reliability, all of these things. But I'm pleased to say that since April, when we were 6th in the domestic market, in September, we have finished provisionally first. The results are going to be officially coming out today or tomorrow. So we'll be first or second, hopefully first. And if we are first, that will be the first month since at least 2014 that Air India was #1. We only went back to 2014. We didn't have records before, so it might even be longer than that. But #1 for September.
Speaking of success and speaking of important metrics that one would expect changes to see changes in, financial health and financial performance. While revenue has grown, at least in the last reported numbers for March 2022, the year ending FY22, revenues grew, but so did the losses of over 9,500 crores. What is the current burn rate on a daily basis as far as Air India is concerned, and how much do you believe you're going to be able to do in terms of trimming the losses?
Well, there's a lot we can do. Many, many contracts have been renegotiated. We have aircraft that previously were being paid for but not able to fly. We're putting them progressively back into service. New systems and tools, revenue management systems, distribution capabilities. as we get more punctual and therefore more reliable, we can charge people a fare that is commensurate with the product quality they're getting. But there's many other things we need to do, seats, in-flight entertainment, all of these things we're investing in to take that product a little bit further. But yes, it is still a challenged business, and the high fuel prices at the moment are not helping any airline, including Air India. But we're confident that there is a path to success. We're confident the path to success is not forever. And so, yes, I think we're quietly optimistic that we can turn this business around in a pretty good time.
But, speaking of options, and two of the airlines within the domestic market are looking at the government credit guarantee scheme, the ECLGS scheme that has been made available to the aviation sector to try and help airlines ride out the tough times. What are the options that you're considering at this point in time, specifically from a financial perspective?
No, at the moment, we're well capitalized. Clearly, there's some cleaning up that we continue to need to do, but we won't be looking at anything like that.
Okay. You talked about the aspiration, you talked about the changes at this point in time. Where have you been able to do the heavy lifting? How successful have you been in the areas that you've been able to do the heavy lifting so far? And what will be the areas of priority, at least in the next few months? Especially external, not just the changes that you're making internally, but also external communication to your stakeholders.
So the most important thing that we focus on, clearly safety is the most important, and as we go through a lot of this foundational investment, the most important thing really is, what does the customer experience? Refunds, there were many thousands of refunds that have been outstanding, most pertaining to the COVID period. We've cleaned those up. We've publicly gone out and said, if you think you've got a refund owed by India, please write to us, we want to resolve it. Punctuality, I spoke about. With seats, carpets, curtains, all of the things on the aircraft we're progressively trying to upgrade. In-flight entertainment. All the wide-body business class in-flight entertainment should be working by the end of this month. All of the economy class should be working by the end of January. We are in the process of talking to manufacturers and suppliers about potentially refurbishing the entire interior of some of our aircraft. Call centre, we've recruited hundreds more people so that the processing time is much shorter, and the quality of people responding is much better. Airports, recruiting our own staff to make sure that there is supervision on contractors that provide our work, but also educating and enthusing the ground handling agents so that they represent us with pride. So many touch points. We've changed our core passenger service system, which underpins our reservations, but also our website and our app. So there's been some improvement in those, and it's bought us time now to do a complete rebuild of both of those interfaces so that we are second to none amongst the airlines. So there's plenty of things going on, but the priority really has been, what does the customer experience with us? How can we demonstrate that this is a new Air India? How can we resolve those pain points that they've experienced at a war scale? And once we've done that, then we can really start focusing on taking what is then a good airline to be world-class.
We'll head into a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation with the CEO of Air India on the airline's flight path going forward. Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. We're in conversation with the CEO of Air India on what the future holds. What is going to be the brand promise that you now make to customers?
Well, the brand promise has to be substantiated by capabilities, in fact. And so, yes, the future Air India might carry, might look a little bit different. It might represent itself in a slightly different way, but that's something for the future to be determined.
What is the revenue mix between domestic and international at this point in time, and both in terms of pricing and realization? I would imagine that international does better for you, if you can give us some color on that.
Well, I won't go into specifics, but yes, the international market is more lucrative. Partly because it's also a little bit unusual circumstance, given it's still post-COVID with respect to capacity, and also there's geopolitical issues that have changed traffic flows a little bit. But I won't go into more specifics. we see certainly the immediate economic opportunity being international.
But with the split in terms of revenue, international, domestic,
we
no?
won't go there, won't go there.
Won't go there yet. Okay, I'm hoping that you will get into the area of consolidation, which is going to be an added complexity for Air India. But that's the plan: AirAsia and Air India Express, and eventually Vistara and Air India. And yesterday Singapore Airlines put out a statement saying that they have initiated talks. They're confidential, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get from you. But let me address this issue. What's happening on AirAsia and Air India Express, where the intent has been made very clear, and there is a target of 2024 to get it done, and then Air India and Vistara?
So, I mean, Tata is a common shareholder in 4 airlines. I think they've also made the statement that they see the future being one airline, two platforms, or one platform, 2 airlines. I can't recall which way it went. Clearly, having a low-cost business that is both international and domestic makes commercial and logical sense. But we don't yet own all of AirAsia India. We're thinking about how we would go about the process of integrating them, and hopefully that comes to pass. With respect to full service, there's really nothing I can say. As you rightly noted, there's an acknowledgement that there's conversation happening between the shareholders. That statement was very clear that it's at the exploratory stage and no definitive decisions have been made. So we'll just have to see what happens after that.
You talked about the use of technology and how you've been able to sort of upgrade your app and so on and so forth. And that is a big focus area for a lot of airlines, including many Indian airlines. And that is an area of expertise for the House of Tatas as well. Where have we already started to see much more of the integration and the synergy play itself out so far?
Well, across the board. Other parts of the Tata Group have been contributing significantly with respect to providing services to us, obviously a commercial basis. Some of our management team have come from Tata Digital, TCS, other parts of the Tata Group, and bring with them understanding of how different parts of the conglomerate can help. Tata Technologies, for example, Air India's seats, as I think has been acknowledged, sometimes the recline didn't work so well. Sometimes there were some components that needed to be replaced. And in a scarcity of resources environment, that couldn't happen. We've been able to go out and buy all of those spares for the most part and recover this, but there are some spares that we couldn't get. And so Tata Technologies has actually done 3D modelling of these parts and constructed these parts from scratch and given us ship sets full of these things so we can go and recover the quality of our product. So all parts of Tata are coming in. For example, Tata Motors have a very, very established procurement process, and we've had some folk from Tata Motors come in and really help us design a world-class procurement system that can then support Air India. We've had teams from Tata Business Excellence, which is a program whereby executives, typically young executives from different companies, come together to really go and do business diagnosis and recommendations and analysis for other companies in the Tata Group. There's been a fantastic team of men and women with us for 6 months doing this sort of assistance within Air India, and we're now executing on a number of these recommendations. So in another sports analogy, I guess it's a full court press of effort and attention.
Well, yes, and I would imagine it's only going to accelerate as we move forward. But, I want to understand from you, as an outsider who's worked in the aviation market outside of India, and now you're here operating Air India. This is an exciting market from a demand perspective, from a growth perspective, but it's also been a market where we've seen many airlines launch and many airlines shut down. What, to your mind, are the specific issues that you believe are peculiar to the Indian aviation sector? Are they largely regulatory, or do you believe that it's just poor choices being made by airlines that have run in this country, or a little bit of both?
No, I wouldn't want to get into those specifics, to be honest, because many of the reasons that cause I guess the ebb and flow that you describe no longer prevail, or don't prevail, at least in the future horizon we're looking at. We think the ingredients for success are very, very clear now. We have a geographic position which is second to none. We have economic growth, which is the strongest of any major country. We have a 1.4 billion population and a 35 million diaspora that is the most affluent of most diaspora in any country they exist. We have patient capital with big ambitions to support Air India. We have a resurgent India that is representing itself strongly on the world stage. We have geopolitics, which is changing supply lines and supply chains and people's view of where production and manufacturing can be best done. All of these ingredients lead to what I see as just an exciting decade, an unprecedentedly exciting decade for Indian aviation. And so there's no better place to be in the world than here right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Since you believe that this is going to be the golden decade for Indian aviation, specifically in terms of Air India, future growth opportunities, some of which you've just outlined, but new revenue opportunities, new revenue streams, ancillary revenue, for instance, which has been something that other airlines have been looking at. Cargo operations have kicked in very well for some of the other airlines as well. If you can give us some sense of what we should expect on that front, and also from a customer point of view, I understand that you're bringing in premium economy as a class for customers. What else can we expect in the mix?
Well, I don't want to give away too many trade secrets, but there are also many things that are not secret that we just can and will do better. For example, cargo. As we ramp up a wide-body fleet, that brings with it a very large cargo capacity in the belly hold. It can be a much stronger revenue contributor than it is now. Loyalty. Our loyalty proposition is not the best. The membership base is not as large as it should be. And the opportunity perhaps for a linkage with Tata Neu or other loyalty programs represents significant opportunity. Ancillary revenues, yes, premium economy is one, but the low-cost side of the business, ancillary revenues and low-cost airlines typically 25, maybe even 30% of their total revenues. There's an opportunity there. Perhaps learn from, say, what AirAsia does and apply that to Air India Express or vice versa. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to dial the needle up. And then, frankly, to use more modern technology in some areas. So revenue management is vital for today's airline. There's improvements we can make in that, and we will.
So since we've been using a lot of sporting analogies, let me end by asking you, are you ready for a Virat Kohli type innings or a more Rahul Dravid sort of innings?
I was watching TV the other night. I wish I could recall the player that did it, but he hit 6 sixes in 1 over, and whilst we would all aspire to do that, it happens very rarely. So as I say, this is a test match, not a T20. We'll keep hitting those 1s and 2s and aspire to hit those 6s whenever the opportunity allows.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the record. We wish you and the team at Air India the very best of luck, and hopefully the next time we speak we will get a little more from you in terms of details, but appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Shereen.
Well, that's it then on this edition of On the Record from all of us here on the team. Goodbye, many thanks for watching. We'll see you again shortly.
Your health.